Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Growth Chain, the podcast where we sit down with the real operators behind fast growing cannabis brands. I'm your host, Toshe, and this episode is brought to you by Bronze.io, the cannabis growth agency behind brands like IndaCloud. If you're tired of the fluff and want a real story behind cannabis brands that actually scale, subscribe now. Growth Chain is where you always find the truth about the cannabis business. No hype, no BS, just real operators and real growth. Today's guest is Josh Bertini, CRO of IndaCloud, and we're talking about what it really takes to grow in this industry. The wins, the breakdowns, the truths no one else shares. Let's get into it.
What's up, guys? I'm Josh Bertini, the CRO at IndaCloud, and super excited to be Toshe's first guest on the podcast. I think we've got some really exciting stuff to share with you guys, and stay tuned for some interesting stories, some war stories, some wins, some losses, and the never-ending battle that it is to work in the cannabis industry.
Yeah. So uh I have uh I have the first question for you. I've read over your LinkedIn, like how you started. I can see like you have experienced more than a decade, and it's pretty rich background. So, how did you end up in cannabis? Tell me, so we can
Okay.
start from scratch. You know?
I'll start from scratch. I'll start from like the good old college days because I think, there's a number of people who can relate to being a broke 18 or 19-year-old in college. And as someone who is definitely a lover of cannabis early on, it kind of just made sense to start there, so to speak. And I won't speak to the legality at the time, but I was an enterprising, industrious person from a young age. And when everyone else in the dorm wanted cannabis, it just made sense to buy in bulk, so to speak. So that's how I really got started in cannabis. That was probably like 13 years ago now. But from there, like most regular people, I decided to get an actual job when I graduated. So my first job was just a sales job. And I love the people to death. I liked the job. But for some reason, I still hated my life. And some advice for everyone. The more, if you can't figure out what you want to do in life, do something you really hate. The longer you do something you hate, the closer you'll get to figuring out what you actually want to do. So I survived about 14 months in the sales position. And it just got to a point where I'm like, okay, cool. I'm making money. I'm doing well in my job. I have all these friends, but something was missing. And I decided to go on that grand life adventure to figure out what was missing at that point. So I quit my job and I decided to go traveling to Southeast Asia. And you might be wondering, how the heck does traveling to Southeast Asia lead to being the CRO of a cannabis company? Well, I'll tell you. I rented a motorbike when I got to Vietnam. This is about 2 months into my travels, and I decided to go from the south to the north. And one night, when I was tired, exhausted, and done drinking, $1 beers, my friends decided to still drag me out. And it's about 3 in the morning at some crappy rooftop club I think I was in Hanoi at the time. And I end up meeting this Australian guy. And he's like, "Oh, you're from Canada. Like, you know a lot about cannabis." And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess." He's like, "We should start a CBD business together." I'm like, "Are you serious?" Because like a lot of people say they want to start a business. And literally, it was that moment we just high fived and decided we would start traveling together and start writing the business plan. So on hammocks, on the back of motorbikes, literally off our phones, we came up with the business plan for my first cannabis business, which was called Dollar a Day CBD, which is a really simple, really fun business. It was like the true dream of what, if you've ever read the 4 Hour Work Week, it was like Tim Ferriss's embodiment of a business where it was like 3 products, a 500 milligram CBD oil, 1,000 or 1,500 just on subscription only. Really like the perfect business to get started in. And so
So you got your inspiration to start your business while you were broke.
I was dead broke, just traveling. And it was just like at that time, it's like, let's see where this goes. Like, we have no money, we have nothing we can really do. And you have to be really smart when you're starting a business with no money because there's no money
Yes.
wasting it on lawyers. There's no money to be wasted on accountants. There's no money to be wasted on 100,000 things I know now that I didn't know then. So
The one thing that I have learned on my journey, like personal journey as a business owner nowadays, is that when you have a money and when you start with money, you end up with no money.
Very true.
So, I was there myself, like that broke many times, like not only one. Like imagine me, a kid, 20, not kid, I would say, 25 years, came to United States, and I came with money and I end up with no money. I couldn't make money in United States while I was there, and I made more money living in third world country called North Macedonia. So when you're broke, kind of your survival mode is on another level that you really need to make business. And I was never doing it for the money, and I was doing it for the journey, but that journey needs fuel. Like, you needed the fuel for your bike, that's what you say.
Oh,
So
oh, oh,
that fuel for the bike, look where it got you.
there's nothing more motivating than being $30,000 in credit card debt trying to start a business. I
Right.
promise that keeps the 12-hour days feeling very fresh. So, yeah, forewarning, guys, it's not so scary being broke, but you better have an action plan and be willing to work your butt off. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble. That's for sure.
So
So,
two-man band.
yeah, it was a two-man band, and I think it stayed being a two-man band basically the entire business, right? As I mentioned, 2.5, 3 years in, we both kind of took an early retirement, let the business run its course. And I just kept traveling the world. I lived in Mexico. I was all over Europe. I was just doing anything else other than working for a period of time. At some point, I got my business broker's license to buy and sell other businesses, which was really fun. But I was still in a few, like, now let's get to how I joined IndaCloud as the first hire there. And
Okay.
fun story, I was in a Facebook group. Not all bad things come from social media. So there's a Facebook group out there called, I think it's like CBD business owner something something something. And it was basically a group just to sell you on marketing services, whatever. And I think at one point, someone made a post that was just completely wrong about SEO. It was just a lie. Like, I didn't know that much about SEO that time. I definitely thought I knew more than I did, as most young entrepreneurs probably do. But anyways, I called them out. Da, da, da. And within a few minutes, I had a DM from the owner of IndaCloud being like, "Hey, we should get on a call. You sound like you know something." And so we chatted for a few 3-4 months, build up a bit of trust. And before I knew it, I was, hired as the one to run IndaCloud. So, when I started, it was mostly a business that was like direct to store. It was purely kind of B2B with a really, really small online presence. So my first job was like building out the first website and trying to grow from there. So yeah, that
So
was 4 years ago now.
right, and then you were like on the front, like one man band who is trying to do all the marketing before you hired the first agency.
Yes. So honestly, at the start, it was just myself and our developer who's still with us today. He's a legend. Shout out to John Gear. And it was just him and I. Honestly, the whole business was run off like Facebook Messenger and like video chats on Facebook. Like that's how the business started. Like, it wasn't like a bunch of fancy tools, no SaaS, nothing like that. It was just like us, Facebook, and a website. And it's just like, how do you grow? Right. And that came down to like, oh, here's a Facebook group that I can post in with an affiliate link. Here's
Right.
here's like an article I can post on Quora, like, those old, really grassroots way of growing. So it started really with affiliate, believe it or not, because back then there was a lot more red tape. I think now it's kind of common knowledge that there's a lot of ways to advertise across like Meta, Snapchat, Twitter. It's not super easy to advertise there, but they're options and they work
Yes.
now if you have
Yes.
enough money,
And
especially to do it.
and I think new cannabis brand owners now have more options than ever to start on a better scale than you were at the time 4 years or six
For sure.
years ago.
But
Be- be-
they have a lot
we
more options to waste money, because I'm sure, the first few times you run anything on Facebook, maybe the first year and a half, believe it or not, you're probably losing money. Like,
right.
it's really interesting how you speak to a lot of agencies and stuff, and they sell you on this glorious, direct, easy path to make money. It's never the case.
Okay, so let's start with the agency one. So have you ever been like screwed over for an agency? Like, what advice would you give to the young entrepreneurs? Like, what should they go with agency first, or they should do the marketing themselves and until they grow up at a certain level and then hire an agency? Like, how do you advise on that side?
Great
Because
question.
you know a lot about marketing. You're not like a only person who who works only with the brand. You also know what is necessary in order to be successful, and you know most of the aspects for marketing that I would say like maybe some 80% of brand owners even think that they know something, but some stuff needs some clarity. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think you can't go through a business by getting screwed over by a multitude of partners, whether it's from production or the agency or marketing side, or even hires you make. I think that's an inevitability that you need to prepare for. In the lens of agencies, I learned something really, really, really important early on. You can speak to the most incredible salespeople. You can speak to the most incredible business owners. But what you need to make sure of is that you speak to the person who's actually going to be running the marketing for you, right? It is usually not the owner of the agency who's going to be running your ads. It's usually not the agency owner who's going to be writing out the emails and scheduling them. So you need to be very cognizant of it's not just the owner you want to speak with, but before you sign any paperwork, you speak to the person who will actually be doing the work. It is the most valuable piece of advice I can ever give when anyone's evaluating an agency to work with. Speak to the person who's going to be doing the work every
Speak
time.
speak to the person who is going to run the ads for you.
Exactly. And so,
And
there's a lot of wonderful cases where the owner is running those for you. Hint, hint, this guy over here. But I highly recommend you make sure you know the structure of the companies you are working with. Otherwise, you can end up in a pretty bad position pretty quick.
this episode is brought to you by Brands.io, the cannabis growth agency behind brands like IndaCloud. With over 21 million in compliant ad spend under management, we've helped clients scale to 3,005 new customers a month. Proven frameworks, no fluff, just real growth. Want to see what's possible for your brand? Book a free ad account audit in the link in the description. Yeah. I've been there myself because, uh, me as an agency owner, yeah, I'm running the ads for all of our clients, and you're a client of ours, and most of the stuff, and we grow at a certain level, and you really, I would give advice to the agency brand owners for cannabis, because the only mistake they are keep doing it and doing it is they just onboard and onboard clients. Like, we just work with closed pods. Okay, can we handle this? Can we not handle this? Okay, there is a waiting sign up form. We can put these guys over there. If there is a room at some point, someone wants to take a break or some other stuff is happening, they want to invest in some other part of their business, like that's acceptable, but not on any price. Like, okay, we're gonna run the ads, and like, I've met agency owners who doesn't know what means MER. I get it if the brand owner knows, doesn't know what is MER, but agency owner who doesn't know what is MER, like, it's kind of not good.
No, of course not. And I think like the the owners, their job is to provide value first, right? Provide
Yes.
value first. And then one cautionary tale for sure, or one piece of caution is like over promising and under delivering. It's very, very challenging for owners not to. It's their babies. You have a lot of pride in your business. It makes sense. But if you're wondering why you have a ton of client turnover, it's probably because you told them you were going to do A to Z and you can only do ABC. So just be really cognizant of that. As an agency owner, it's just like, take care of your clients, listen to them, but also like make sure you do exactly what you're going to say. And it's much easier now. Everyone has a note taker. Everyone knows exactly what someone's asking and what your takeaways are. And so, it's no longer an excuse if I missed it, right? Like it's
Yeah.
documented, it's there. So
Yes. Yes. That's true. Um, the other part that I wanted to talk about, like many cannabis brand owners, they want, like, they're not yet cannabis brand owners, but they want to be. And most of them, I feel like they're, waiting to start until their website is ready. And we don't have a team for that, we don't have a team for that, or they're waiting for some funding, because I kind of heard somewhere that investors are kind of messing up with the real businesses, and they're doing more harm than good for the cannabis brand owners with funding. So is that true? Have you heard of that? Or it's
Yeah, of course. And I think that makes sense for a lot of businesses. Taking early funding will put a lot of pressure on your business. And you know, if you're talking about like getting some money from like a close friend or family member, it's never really a good idea to borrow money from those people unless you have some confidence in the background to make sure you can pay them back. But at least there's not that immense pressure and another person telling you what to do. A lot of the times, early investors will want a seat at the table, especially for new entrepreneurs, right? Unless they have a really good reason to invest in you, they will want a seat at the table to tell you what to do. And I think an issue with that is the one of the best ways to have success, especially in a space as congested as cannabis, right? There's thousands of brands to choose from right now. Um, People, the audiences, they crave authenticity. And if you need to water down your authenticity at that early of a stage in your business due to other people forcing you to do things you don't want to do, that will come out in not just all your advertising, but your website and your products. So that would be the air of caution there. I think it's not easy to get funding in the cannabis space. I'd say it's extremely challenging, especially if you're an early entrepreneur that already doesn't have a C-level team ready to go and execute with that like prior experience. There's probably not a reason to take funding. It's a good way to waste money, as Toshe mentioned. If you're starting a business for your first time, when you get handed $50,000, it will disappear really, really quickly because it's hard to prioritize. You feel like you need to do everything, and there is everything to be done, but it really has to be of like your baseline of what do I actually need to do this? Do I need a full website, or can I just actually start and test this brand with a single landing page, some terms of service, you know, an AI chat bot for customer service, or yourself, which I do recommend all business owners go do, like, even if you've been doing it for a couple of years, get on that customer service team, be the customer service person,
correct.
understand what your audience wants. They will provide you the
Yes,
best feedback.
correct. And you're gonna learn so much about your business than any other book that you're gonna learn on some dude, or some dude that have write something over the internet. Because uh, you know, we were running some cold email strategies to acquire some new business for our company. And, when I get into the messages, and, we do changes based on the feedback that we got on the emails or LinkedIn, and that's how you got it, because they're gonna teach you how to do it, because they're gonna let you know what they're looking for. And I think that's the very, very, very good advice that you have shared with all of us today, because it's really important. And I think it's really simple. You can just the first thing that you need is find a good payment processor. The second thing is just a Shopify store. Simple as that.
Yeah. It's super simple, right? And like, people want to release 45 SKUs to start their business and like really experienced with inventory management and have, an insanely good supply chain. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Start with your core products that people want. Don't spend too much time on the research and development. That will happen live when your customers tell you the products suck. It's a little bit more expensive to go with the minimum order quantities, but it's typically a safe bet. You know, find find the efficient ways to do things early on.
Yeah.
And,
It's
and
always better idea to start with 1 to 3 products rather than 45.
for sure, for sure. And you know what? there's a million companies out there that will white label, private label. If you want to test a new SKU, find a good partner on that side who, you know, has 100 bottles of CBD oil ready for you to slap a label onto it and see what happens. But obviously, make sure you have your lab tests and make sure they're trustworthy, because that can go wrong in quite a few ways too.
Yeah. Since we got into products, I have some questions to ask you. And
Sure.
there is some stuff that I'm not looking anymore at that stuff, and I don't know if you will be surprised by this. What happened with Delta 10?
Yeah. So it became kind of disinteresting, right? Like there was CBD was the first wave. It opened the floodgates from the Farm Bill. The next thing to pop up that was really, really interesting for everyone was Delta 8, right? Delta 8 is like, holy crap, we can spray this on CBD flower and it gets you high. We can put this in a gummy and it gets you high. You can do basically anything you can with regular, Delta 9 THC in Delta 8, right? So after Delta 8 came out, everyone was still abiding by the less than 0.3% Delta 9 THC law. So they just looked elsewhere. So Delta 10, the Delta 11s, I mean, there was any number of different terms, the THCOs, HHCs, there wasn't regulation around it. It kind of made sense to start there. The reason it went away really quickly is, well, THCO disappeared mostly due to health concerns because it could potentially be bad. HHC being a super long chain cannabinoid, like if you look at the structure of like the THC molecules, HHC has an extra hydrogen molecule on it, and essentially you can actually overdose on HHC. So if you're wondering why that kind of started to die down, is because like it's so long it can wrap around the entire CBD receptor and block it off, which can actually cause a ton of health concerns. So like that made HHC less interesting. But the real number one reason is they figured out the loophole around Delta 9, right? The entire
Right.
law was based around dry weight. And so they figured, I'm going to scratch my head for a second. If the law's around the dry weight, if I have a gummy, a physical gummy that weighs 7 grams, well, I can fit up to 26 milligrams of Delta 9 THC in it, and it's still less than 0.3% by dry weight. So as soon as they figured that out, I think there was just people were like, well, if I can basically get the regular thing, why am I going to bother with this like plethora of alternatives that are slowly coming out with potential health risks when I can just get closer to the actual thing? And then that got compounded as soon as THCA came into play. And for those of you who don't know, basically THCA is the precursor molecule to Delta 9, which essentially means all marijuana, all cannabis is THCA until it's decarboxylized or heated up to a temperature where it converts into Delta 9. So they figured, hey, if I can, grow my cannabis just slightly colder, a little darker when it's time, and when I cut it off, I make sure it's airtight and not touching light. Well, now I have a perfectly compliant, actual like one-to-one marijuana product that I'm not going to get in trouble with. So that even further pushed away all those alternatives that people don't need anymore, because you have options to incredible Delta 9, edibles, Delta 8, and of course now, the plethora of ways to ingest THCA through smoke and vape. So that's why those disappeared.
Right. 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 Okay. So I've seen now when you started getting into milligrams, I've seen on your website, like, and I know I'm aware of it, and everybody can check it out, indacloud.co. You have a beast gummies, 10,000 milligrams.
Oh,
What's that about? What
well,
about potency and people ramping up their tolerance level? Like, what's that all about?
so it's actually debatably, I'd consider it a problem, if not at least a challenge of the industry. And it was a huge point of contention across the leadership at IndaCloud, was like, you know, do we cater to this audience of people who want extremely potent products? Like, is it healthy? Is it worth it? The potential backlash of someone taking too much cannabis, which can happen even with a 20 milligram gummy. It took a lot of convincing from our audience to our team. It was really our audience who did the convincing for us, because every single survey we asked, what did they want? Stronger. How much stronger? Infinitely stronger. And there are competitors who've been out with very high potency gummies for a really long time, but there's a reason it took us, like, being in business 3.5 years before we released a super high potency product. It took just a ton of convincing for us to do it. It was a market want, but not something any of us strongly believe in. That's why if you go read those descriptions on those products, we're not we're not being like, oh, this is the most potent gummy, get ready for the best time of your life. No, the entire thing is a warning that literally says, like, do not take this. It is extremely potent. Like, this is only for people with extreme potencies. This is not for people who've tried edibles and say they didn't feel it. This is for people who, like, need the extreme to feel anything. There is
Right.
a small percentage of the population that cannot metabolize most cannabinoids through their digestive system, right? For them, the degradation is so intense that, if they took a 100 milligram gummy, it's the equivalent of us taking a 5 milligram gummy. That really does happen. So there is this, like, subset of people who really enjoy cannabis, but can't enjoy edibles because the potency is just not there for them due to, like, actual biological factors. So it's kind of interesting. So for those people, it does actually serve that purpose, because they can take a 500 milligram gummy and it would be the equivalent of us maybe taking 220 milligram gummies or something. So it's not so ludicrous. But the concern is for the people who are like, hey, I like being high on 50 milligrams. Let me try 500. These products aren't for you. Don't try them. It's not worth it. You will, for almost all of our products, we, like, kind of tout that there's not going to be a hangover. It's like a better alternative to alcohol. Not on 500 milligram gummies. You will wake up high and burnt out the next day, guaranteed. Your body simply can't digest it. That so
Right.
a word of caution on really potent stuff. But, to the other point of, like, everyone, it's like a race to the most potency. We even see that at the dispensary level. I go in there and I'm like, hey, do you have anything around 10 to 12%? And it's like, oh, we've got some CBD gummies. But they really don't cater to people who are just looking for that light buzz. I think now the whole push for seltzers and cannabis drinks, we're actually coming out with an epic cannabis sodas, an epic cannabis soda, because there's too many seltzers out there in the market right now. It's like, I don't know, there's 1,000 brands doing seltzers. We went for a really awesome soda. We're on, like, our 15th round of research and development right now. But that is finally catering to the people who want a more moderate dosage, because a lot of those are 5 and 10 milligrams per drink, which is really
Yes.
affordable for a regular consumer who's not a daily user, right? Because up until now, I feel like most products have been catered to people who use it daily. So it's nice to have an alternative for someone who just wants it once a week and doesn't need an established tolerance to enjoy a cannabis product.
Right. So, from what I understand, your message about do not, guys, take really high dose of milligrams. Like, do not do the 10,000 if you're not like a real user, and like that's like the end game from what I understand. And how
Yeah,
many surveys do you run to your audience per month, let's say?
we actually run surveys nonstop. If you get on our website, we have like 5 surveys ongoing within our rewards program. Like, we really try and reward people for, answering the questions. Some of them are like 4 question long surveys. Some of them are 5. When you check out from our website, if you're kind enough, we have a post purchase survey that goes really in depth with 20 questions. And then we also send them out via email to specific cohorts of groups. Right. So
Right. So if you run a mystery, like if you run a birthday gift campaign, you know each person what they're wishing for their birthday.
exactly. We can get down to that level of, making sure the audience has what they want. Um,
Okay.
our business is purely predicated on our customers. We're
Yeah.
a customer first business. It's the reason that, we have a customer service team of 8 people, like
Wow.
actual humans. We don't use a single AI chat bot. You know, we have real people doing it, real people with real cannabis experience as well. We try and hire people who've worked in dispensaries or who are just like diehard passionate about cannabis, because that's how, we have that human connection to the people who want that human experience for their product. Uh,
Right.
So like everything we do comes down to like, how can we give back more? Oh, guys, guess what? We just sold 45,000 units. We just hit the next tier. We're going to get a price drop on our next production run. Let's pass that on to the customer. We're going to take $10 off that. You know, in 2 days, we're going to be sending out an email that our sleep gummies, which took 2 years of research and development to make the world's best sleep gummy, where, you know, it's not just THC, it's THC, CBN, melatonin, L-theanine, GABA, all in their effective dosages in a sugar-free gummy. The amount of time and care it takes to do that correctly is almost unfathomable when you don't have access to a $20 million lab. But we take the time to do it because it's just like, we won't even release something unless it's perfect.
Right. And I wanted to ask you also about the seltzers, the sodas, and I've seen that fight with milligram fight, like on the drinks, on the seltzers, infused tonics. We started with 5 milligrams, now 10. Now someone wants to go even higher, and there's people from the community fighting like, why do you need higher milligrams? Like, what's gonna happen? You're gonna do the same the same race that you did with Delta 9. Like, what's going on that? So uh, are you planning to launch a product? Because I've kind of learned that you say that you have spent a bunch of money on researching for your drinks at the moment. So let's do some more of that.
So for us on our side, right, we're pretty specific to our audience, you know. So, and because we have such a big audience, you know, we've had 50,000 plus customers. We're able to get that first party data. So the first people we want to please aren't the new customers we're trying to get. It's to please the initial ones we have. And so we're actually going to release all of our sodas in 2 strengths. So we have the, you know, the people who want something a little bit more regular and approachable around that 10 milligram mark, where, you know, if you want something a little bit weaker, drink half the can. You're at a great 5 milligram mark. If you want something stronger, drink 2 cans. And then additionally, because we do have an audience of people who, you know, struggle with a multitude of health problems or just really need that higher dosage, we're also doing a 50 milligram can. But that's about the maximum. But the same thing goes, right? If you want something weaker, drink half the can. If you want something stronger, drink 2 of them, right? But it's also a balance. It's actually really, really challenging, at least from the beverage side, to get something that tastes good, even at 50 milligrams. That's where a lot of the R&D comes in. Is it's one thing to make a product that's effective, but to make it effective and taste good in such a competitive market, you have to be able to pull that off. Otherwise, it's not worth it, in our opinion, at least.
Right. Right. Okay. Because based on my data and on what we've been working so far on our end, it came to popular product Delta 8, then Delta 9, then Delta 10, then we got back to Delta 8 and 9, and after that we got the most popular product than ever. It was the flower. Like,
Yeah.
49% of the users are they're users of flower. And now we are coming to the trend on the soda seltzers, like all these infused tonics. So I really can't wait to see your product. And so it's super exciting. But the other thing that it's a really trending topic is what's going on with Texas. So you, as a online e-commerce cannabis store, like, do you face any challenges
100%.
until when you can sell there, and or you can sell there forever? Is it that only for dispensaries? Like, what's going on?
No, it's anything hemp touching, anything hemp derived, like all of it's going away. And so actually we have a YouTube channel, and we actually did a whole interview where there's a gentleman who's worked for us, actually a good friend of ours as well, named Adam Rockenberry. He lives out in Texas, and he's been a major proponent of hemp derived cannabis since day one. He struggles with an unbelievably complicated amount of health issues. And the only thing that helped him were these cannabis products, right? Because it was accessible. You know, marijuana is still illegal largely in Texas. So, he's been a proponent since day one. So we actually did do a whole 30-minute interview with him, going like really detailed into what the law does, how it's going to impact the people. Some people have done some research into the amount of jobs that are going to be lost, the amount of unemployment that's going to have to be paid out from Texas. Some of those stats are pretty ludicrous. Like, it is a massive industry there. So we try and do our part. We try and stay educated, educate our customers on what's happening. We try and help a little bit on the lobbying side too. There's a lot of companies that are even bigger than us that are really generously pouring some dollars into help lobbying for these things, because honestly, it's just kind of a battle against alcohol or big tobacco or any of these other traditional players that really don't want this in their markets so they can help increase their sales. But I think the general population knows, they're calling out why this is an issue. They're like, what, you want us to buy from drug dealers again and get arrested? Like,
That's where I was getting. Like,
that's not a good
okay,
solution.
uh, I was watching a video. I think was from the mayor, but I'm not sure. And he was talking with the reporter, and she asked him like, "What's going on? Why you're doing this?" And he said, um, "Some guy last year ate some of the cannabis stuff, and he threw himself under the bus or the train, whatever." And that got me thinking. Okay, I went to the studies, and I see from alcohol in United States for the past, I think was 2024 or past 12 months, maybe 2024, rough data. Let's talk. From alcohol died 178K people. From cannabis died 88K people. So what's going on? In those 88K people, that means they have died from cannabis, but also they have buying from the black market. Okay. So everything bought like an alcohol is bought from the liquor stores, right? There is no black market. And what percentage of those 88K is coming from the black market? And since the data says that people are dying less from cannabis, like how how we can explain this to um, the public, to the audience, to people who are using cannabis or never tried, and or maybe their parents are against it, like what's going on over there?
Yeah, well, I think it's also really important to distinguish. So there's alcohol, there's deaths caused by alcohol, and there's deaths related to alcohol. There's deaths by cannabis, and there's deaths related to cannabis. So, for an example, death by alcohol is drinking so much you literally overdose. It happens all the time. Or necrosis of the liver, you've destroyed your liver because you were an alcoholic and you'll pass away from that. So there's a million complications related to alcohol that can be direct cause of alcohol death. From the cannabis side, it's most likely what you're referring to is cannabis related deaths, which means someone smoked a fat joint and decided to drive, get in a car accident, and they died. So, but there's very,
So
very
and
few.
did they did they die from the cannabis or the accident of the car?
Exactly. I mean, listen, don't get high and drive, people. It's kind of common sense. Don't operate heavy machinery. Read the warning labels. Make sure it doesn't interact with any medications. Thankfully, there actually aren't too many that interact with cannabis. But in general, like, there's almost no real argument. Alcohol is much, much worse and much, much more dangerous from every accord. Like, every kind of argument made against cannabis in general can be doubled down against alcohol. Like, oh, these could be marketed to kids. Okay, what about your fruity alcohol seltzer? Same thing, right? Like, so there is a lot of onus of responsibility that comes to the brand because there isn't as much legislation that's applied to alcohol as there is on cannabis. So it does come down to the brand level now for us to be responsible, to make sure we have our ducks in a row to prevent like minors from purchasing from us, for example. But holistically, it's just a safer option every single time. And so, yeah, relating to Texas, it's just like really curious why they did that. Now, if they said they wanted to remove all hemp products in that same day, they were going to have all THC like legal for like regular marijuana dispensaries on the medical and on the, recreational side, that's a different story. You're giving a one-to-one replacement, and you're probably doing that for taxation and better control, which I think a lot of people could get behind that argument, right? But that's not what's happening. And so it's a very different story when, Texas, this place that's supposed to be all about freedom, is really taking away that freedom. And it's just increasing the likelihood for people to make bad decisions, get in trouble, buying it illegally, higher rates of incarceration. Like all those things are huge issues that are genuinely going to arise from this happening.
So we expect rising on the black market on a legal way.
100%. I'm sure every person who works in the black market is just like, yes, like
Yes, we did it, huh?
we did it. We're in there. Let's start selling
That's called Pablo Escobar.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's not ideal. You're talking also about a border state with one of the potentially the most, notorious drug crossing borders in the world, practically right there in your backyard. So, it's questionable on a few levels.
It's crazy. It's crazy what's going on.
Okay, I have written one blog about what is easier to start, and you know a lot about the cannabis business, and I need you to elaborate on this. Like, what is easier and cheaper to start? Is it a dispensary shop? Is it a on delivery? Is it an e-commerce store for cannabis? What kind of investment you have for each one of these?
Okay.
And yeah.
E-commerce is by far the easiest and cheapest to start. Like if you're talking about dispensary, there's a lot of legality that comes with that. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Everything from like zoning a place for a dispensary, or if you're going to acquire one, you're paying a ton of money. So, buying a brick and mortar dispensary, starting one, by far, that's like the most expensive thing you could possibly do. And literally on the other end is like the e-commerce side, because you can start with, as we mentioned, 1, 2, 3 SKUs. You could start with 2 landing pages and then a small amount of money for an ad budget that you could run yourself. Hypothetically, it's as simple as that, right? There's not a ton of licensing that you need to do. There's a few compliancy aspects that definitely you need to do. And, there's a bit of time that has to go into it, waiting for approvals with a good payment processor. But otherwise, that's going to be the best place to start every single time. Now, if you have money in your pockets and you've ran a lot of brick and mortar, let's say you've run a vape shop for the last 20 years, you are probably better off still, even though it's more expensive, going down the brick and mortar dispensary route, because that's where all your experience lies. So if you go into e-commerce, you're going to have to relearn all of that. But if you're starting from zero knowledge, it's actually probably a little bit easier to learn the e-commerce side of things and just dive in there. The mistakes you make will be a lot more forgiving than what can happen in the retail side.
Yeah, I feel like in retail, only the ones who are already there in business for years, they have the connections, they have everything, and they don't have to really to relearn anything, because when you come to the digital world, you have to relearn everything.
Yeah.
And the consumers online and retail are not behaving the same.
Very, very, very different. Like the best sellers we have on e-commerce compared to where we sell all of our products in stores or through distributors, it's entirely different. Like it's kind of even funny down to the strain level what sells better on e-commerce versus in store. It's super interesting.
Right. And I think this is going to be the last one for you. Tell me about what's going on with the weird names. You had some statement about your weird naming products. Like there is some
I mean, it's
products, like there was something with P. I don't remember how it was.
That's a strain. Cheetah Piss is a strain, but like, we have Alaskan Thunderfuck, we have Dirty Girl, we have all these kind of unique strains that have a buzz to them. Part of that is for differentiation. And the other side of that is like, listen, life is really tough. And something fantastic that I've always been really passionate about cannabis is the fact that Cannabis isn't tough. It's easy. It's relaxing. It's simple. It doesn't have to be some big, complicated thing. It's just about sometimes having a good time. It's not here to, change your life or permanently make you happy. But I can almost guarantee it can make your life 1% better just in those moments. So for us, having that relaxed kind of tone with our audience and giving them some space that, not everything's so serious all the time. We definitely take like the production side very seriously, but in terms of the customer experience, it should be easy, it should be relaxing, it should be fun, and it should be light, and they should be able to have a little giggle when they see a funny name or read a hilarious description about a product. Because,
Yeah.
one of
I,
our website used to be really raunchy. In fact, like I've toned it down quite a bit over the years. I wrote every single original description, and so we'd like a strain of blue dream, for example. I'm like, what's better than a wet dream? A blue dream. Da 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 da. So like you can have a lot of fun. There's a lot of wordplay. There's a lot of things that like
people love it.
yeah, exactly. And if there's anyone who likes cannabis as much as I do, I think they would relate to a lot of those things.
Yeah, yeah. It's all about emotion, how you communicate, how to communicate something that you don't even have to say it.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much, Josh, for joining this Grow Jane podcast. So Josh is our first guest, and I can promise you something. This is not going to be our last time with Josh. We have a really good relationship. We've been in the business many, many years, and we will be.
Yep. Awesome.
Josh, you have something to say?
Thanks for having me on. It was a great conversation. If anyone has any questions for me, hit me up on LinkedIn, Josh Bertini. Shoot me an email, jbertini@indacloud.co, or just go buy some of our products.